Council meeting of Wednesday, August 3rd, 2022 at 9 a.m. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon.
We'll
Please.
now have a moment of silent meditation.
Moment of silence, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you, first of all, grateful that you gathered us in this chambers today, oh Lord, and we ask that by your Spirit you weigh upon us that we make good and prudent decisions for the city of Erie. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the minutes from the Wednesday, July 20th, 2022 City Council meeting and bills for payment on August 5th and 12th, 2022. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen.
I want to thank everybody for being here today. We actually have two presentations that are listed under presentation, but we ended up with 4 presentations. So the first one we're going to do is to honor Mr. William Hurd, who will be celebrating his 100th birthday. So So I am going to read the proclamation, okay? And thank you for coming, and thank you for being here at this lively meeting this morning. Resolved by the Council of the City of Erie that whereas the City Council of the City of Erie wishes to pay special tribute to William Hurd Sr. upon the celebration of his 100th birthday. William was born on August 13th, 1922 in Greenville, South Carolina, the only child of Willie and Anna Mae Hurd. After growing up, he enlisted in the United States Army, where he received an honorable discharge. William then traveled and settled in Buffalo, New York, where he met the love of his life, the late Iona Wilson Hurd. Mr. and Mrs. Hurd married and relocated to Erie in 1950, where they raised their daughter, Rebecca, and their son, Billy Hurd Jr. Mr. Hurd retired from the U.S. Post Office after 21 years of service. He is a longtime active member of the historic St. James AME Church and continues to serve on the Board of Trustees. He was honored as an unsung hero by the Episcopal District Lay Organization. William is a dedicated worker and a very fashionable man, also known as one of the best-dressed gentlemen in Erie. So therefore be it resolved that the Mayor of Erie, Joe Schember, hereby declares August 13th as William Hurd Sr. Day. This commendation is hereby presented to William Hurd Sr., a loving husband, proud father, grandfather, brother-in-law, uncle, and avid sports fan. We extend to him our best wishes and blessings. So. So mark that on your calendar, August 13th. We have another calendar date to put on. We're going to ask David Brennan, former City Council member and architect, to come up and very briefly talk about a project that he's been working on, because this is also something that will be time sensitive, and you may want to put this on your calendar.
Madam President, I'd like to personally thank Dave for taking over with this. We decided to honor Mr. Hagan, but we wanted something more than just a little sign because of everything he's done for the city. I'm sorry to take over, Dave.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, Council. I'm just here to say a few words about the Thomas B. Hagen Way street sign. In November of 2021, as Mr. Brzezinski noted, when I was mayor of council, I was proud to sponsor a resolution to honor Mr. Hagen with the co-naming of West 6th Street from Myrtle to Chestnut Street. At the time of the passing of resolution, several members of the council felt that the street sign should be something special given what Mr. Hagen has done for our community. Since January, myself and several others have been working diligently on the sign, proposals from contractors, and coordinating the fabrication and the installation of the sign. Huge thanks to the creative services at Erie Insurance. They've done an incredible job with the graphic design, and I'm sure you've seen some of the sketches and drawings to show that. Because the sign will be made of a bronze plaque. Again, it's much more, at first we thought it was something large, but we saw, kind of reduced the size of the scale of the sign to be more appropriate for that corner. The sign design and location on the corner it has been vetted by the City of Erie officials and also the Women's Club of Erie. The sign's going right in front of their building there, and their board approved the sign, and they're very happy to host the sign in front of their building. And I hope that council will approve the sign at this location, and I'm available for any questions. There is a ceremony being planned for September 19th. We had to put something on the calendar because it's in the bronze plaque, so we definitely get the sign on. So hopefully everybody could make it, and we'll be in touch soon to coordinate with City Council for those details.
Thanks, Dave. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Brennan? Thanks, David. We'll be voting on that later on.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
And then we will have two presentations, formal presentations this morning. You're good, Dave. One will be from Jenny Tompkins of Penn Future. That'll be the first one. She's going to talk about the potential for creating an environmental advisory council. Other municipalities in Pennsylvania have this. We know we've talked a lot here about various sustainability issues. We have Sarah Peelman, our sustainability coordinator, in the audience here. So go ahead, Jenny. And then after that, we're going to have the Pickleball Association present on their accomplishments.
Great, thank you. Frank, do you want me to just, oh.
And Jenny, if you want to give your whole title too, because I kind of shortened it there, what your role is.
All right, happy to do so. I want to thank everyone for giving me the opportunity to speak today, and thank you to City Council for hearing what I have to share about environmental advisory councils. Thank you to Council President Allen for meeting with me and helping to schedule this presentation. And thank you to everyone who helped collaborate on this. I have a number of environmental partners who represent about a dozen different environmental organizations in and around the Lake Erie watershed who've contributed to this effort to advocate for the creation of an EAC for the City of Erie. My name is Jenny Tompkins. I'm the campaign manager for clean water advocacy with Penn Future. I'm our sole Erie-based employee, but we have almost 30 employees in 5 offices across the Commonwealth, and we're headquartered in Harrisburg. So I've been in Erie for about 6 months, and I've appreciated how welcoming everyone in the environmental community has been. Speaking of which, I wanted to mention the foundation of the work that we're doing here in Erie, which is the Our Water, Our Future campaign. And we have a common agenda or document that outlines our recommendations for protecting water quality and restoring water quality in the Pennsylvania Lake Erie watershed. Many of those recommendations are at the municipal level, one of which is the creation of an environmental advisory council here, but in other municipalities in the watershed. And I worked with a lot of partners from the 12 sign-on organizations that you see on the right of my slide. Almost every one of those is represented in the research group around EACs that have been meeting for several months. We looked at what environmental advisory councils are, which are extensions of local government that focus on environmental matters. And we decided to use our collective knowledge to reach out to about a dozen or more EACs that exist in other regions of the Commonwealth. There are no functional EACs in Northwest Pennsylvania, so we were going to other regions to compare notes and understand what's worked particularly well. I'll go into more detail later about that in particular, but I wanted to highlight all of the individuals that have contributed to this presentation and the research that we did. That's the foundation of it. So what is an environmental advisory council? I gave a couple of quick details, but I want to emphasize again, it's advisory in nature only. Unlike other authorities, boards, and commissions, this is not a voting body that has quasi-governmental or judicial duties over certain decision-making processes. We have a retired educator among the folks that I just highlighted on screen who likes to think of it as a think tank or a research group for elected officials, staff, and other governmental organizations and agencies. They assist in the formation of long-term plans and best management practices for natural resources, so we're talking land, air, and water. They are authorized back in 1973 to be created by municipalities via ordinance. So that's a long time that municipalities have been recognized based on their land use and zoning regulation authority, which obviously, when you're dealing with land use, has a big impact on natural resources. The state recognized back in the 70s that because of the responsibility that municipalities have over natural resources, that they should have the ability to craft and create organizations that can focus on those matters. And now, since 1973, there are about 150 EACs across the Commonwealth. But like I mentioned, none are currently functioning in our region. The city of Meadville, only a couple of weeks ago, formed an EAC, and we'll be getting it off the ground probably the next month or so. Some other details about EACs to know is they, according to Act 148 of 1973 that I showed on the prior slide, they must create an annual report that's given to all elected officials, staff, and relevant agencies. And they have to comply with the Sunshine Act. They often meet monthly, so they have public meetings that have to be advertised just like the other authorities, boards, and commissions. They have up to 7 voting members, all of whom are city or municipal residents. They are appointed by elected officials only. That differs depending on the EAC. Obviously, when you're talking about townships, boroughs, and cities all having these bodies, they have different makeups of elected officials that make those appointments. And they're for staggered 3-year terms. Obviously, that makes sense when you're starting a new group that they need to have staggered terms. They're created at low cost. Some EACs function only with a budget to publish public notices, and they can have their own functioning budget, do their own fundraising, and have their own grant administration, which is often the case in EACs that we spoke with. And I wanted to, I'm not going to go through this in explicit detail and read these off, but I wanted to give council the exact language of what the responsibilities were of EACs per the initial act in 1973. Some of these are fairly vague, however. So the third one on the far right here is promote a community environmental program. Okay, that's up for interpretation, and you see that play out very differently in EACs. The other one is keeping an index of open areas and natural resources, and then providing recommendations on the use of those properties. That's, again, quite vague. That could mean city parks and open spaces in that way, but it could also mean open areas with meadows, potential wetlands, perennial waterways that only come out in the spring during high snow melt areas and whatnot. So a lot of these were left up to interpretation of what works given the diversity of municipalities that we have in Pennsylvania. So I wanted to give a little bit more context on what that actually means on the ground, given those 5 initial duties in 1973. You can see there's a long list of things that EACs actually focus on, but I summed them up in 3 distinct categories. One is education and outreach. EACs commonly provide educational resources and print materials to the public. They attend events and do tabling to educate about environmental issues. They have their own websites and social media pages where they share information about their public meetings and initiatives. And they often focus on environmental justice community engagement. So those who are most disproportionately harmed by pollution are often a focus of EACs. And we would hope in the city of Erie that would be a main priority in particular. That was what our Common Agenda and our Water, Our Future campaign calls for, in particular for the city. They do policy and development consultation. This is a huge part of what EACs are a part of, particularly in southeast Pennsylvania. They provide research on environmental matters. One area of research potentially that's come up in council a lot recently is electrification and the purchase of electric vehicles. I spoke with EACs that provided expertise on this topic in other cities. They focus on policy creation. There were updates to zoning ordinances and development ordinances around renewable energy in other cities that EACs have been a part of. They often are involved in planning commission activities, providing an additional set of criteria or weighing in on development decisions and subdivision plans. They advise on other projects that could impact natural resources, and they comment on long-range plans and development proposals overall. And lastly, they collaborate a lot and they fundraise or do grant making and grant writing. I spoke to EACs who do student mentorship of high schoolers and college students about the environment and helping them to have a platform to share their research. They do community-based grants as well, so sometimes they're a grantor instead of just a grant recipient, which was exciting. They help with strategic planning of elected officials, and they often come to consensus with staff, elected officials, and other bodies before moving forward. They often have strategic plans. They do grant writing and actually letters of support for other projects in the community. And lastly, they network with other EACs. We Conserve PA is a statewide environmental organization that manages an EAC network that has an annual conference and provides resources online. Those 150 EACs, many of them are in that network. And there's actually specific regional networks of EACs that meet annually or more often. So we spoke with over a dozen EACs, as I referenced, but I wanted to share a little bit about what EACs in third-class cities are doing to understand what some of the parallel priorities could be for the city. I wanted to highlight Allentown, Bethlehem, and Harrisburg. Allentown and Bethlehem have high-functioning EACs that have been in place for about 20 years. Harrisburg, unfortunately, just disbanded their EAC in late 2021, but we still have a lot of lessons we can learn from them, and they did great work in the time that it was functioning. So I think it just shows that we can learn from EACs that continue to function well, and we can learn from the lessons of those that have since faltered, unfortunately. So I won't go through every single one of the items here, but the examples of the initiatives of these EACs in cities are meant to show the diversity of the types of projects that they can focus on. We have things associated with climate planning, with air quality monitoring, with clean water. We have initiatives that focus on illegal dumping, which is another topic I know has been of a discussion in the city of Erie. Harrisburg, in my opinion, of all the EACs I spoke with, was dealing with a lot of the same issues at the EAC level that have been in conversation here with you all in City Council. So I would encourage you, I have an additional handout on some of these EACs as the last page of your packet that I encourage you to take a look at later, and includes the actual contact information for the individuals I spoke with in these cities. So I have spoken a little bit about some of the examples of what an EAC could consult on for the city, but I wanted to give a more thorough list of that. So this could be all of the types of topics that you could bring in an EAC, either an individual member, a couple of members, or the entire entity through a public meeting to provide comment on, to do research on, to communicate to the community about, etc. We saw all the list of things that EACs can do. So I'm just going to run down through these quickly. Activities that cut down trees or impact water quality, soil, and air quality. That's really the general list of the priorities an EAC may focus on. Waste management activities that have to do with recycling, composting, etc. Activities that have to do with the remediation of brownfields and other land that may be contaminated. Zoning variances, land development, special exceptions, and conditional uses. Again, this is not an EAC does a vote on those matters. It's if you have a question about how those particular votes may impact our water quality, our bayfront, migratory birds, etc. An EAC can come in and do the research and make recommendations, usually through written letters of recommendation. Improvements to parks and open space, we saw that directly referenced in the 1973 language. Stormwater program planning, development of climate action plans and other long-range plans that impact natural resources, the development of internal policies or the passage of ordinances and other legislative matters, and anything related to public involvement and engagement, particularly in environmental justice communities. I wanted to bring that home again. The city of Erie is home to the only environmental justice areas in our watershed. They are all in downtown Erie. Per the DEP's definition and federal designations, they are going to be subject to priority for federal funding, particularly under the infrastructure money and potentially the new climate bill that is being negotiated as we speak. So it's very important that we continue to focus on those areas over the next couple years with the implementation of key federal funding and the recent passage of over $700 million in the state budget around environmental matters. Lastly, I wanted to focus on the roadmap, as we're calling it. Our research group came together and after talking to a bunch of other EACs, we thought, what is a comprehensive list of steps that would not only create an EAC for the city, but would create an effective EAC that has had public education, that is able to attract 7 qualified candidates with diverse experience and backgrounds, and that have the ability to collaborate effectively with other authorities, boards, and commissions on key research matters. So these are comprehensive steps. Not all of these may be necessary, but I wanted to be open about what we thought would be all the necessary steps for an effective EAC. So I'm coming to you after already speaking to the mayor and getting his consent to continue forward with this research process, and having consulted with City Council President Allen in particular. So step 1 we consider effectively completed. Step 2, I attended about 12 authority board and commission meetings over the last month and a half that directly impact or influence natural resources, and that may have a cooperative and collaborative relationship with an EAC moving forward. So they've generally gotten about the same information that you have this morning and are aware, except that I gave specific examples of how that collaboration may look and how it has looked in other cities. I spent a little bit more time with the Planning Commission because it's actually recommended, if possible, that there be a shared member of the Planning Commission and an EAC, because an EAC is so instrumental in providing those additional and asking those additional questions for development concerns. So I had gave about a 15-minute presentation to them, but everybody else just got public comment and some resources and print materials. So we're on step 3, which is a presentation to City Council and/or a study session. If you feel like you have additional questions about what it would mean for the city to have an EAC, I'd be happy to come back and address those through a study session or other means. But just know that I'm happy and available, and others that were on the slides that were named would be happy, of course, to answer any questions that you have. In about a week and a half, I meet with the mayor and city department heads to talk about what an EAC would mean for staff and some of the work that they do, and to think about some examples of where there might be collaboration. And then we move forward with more public education. Now that I've covered my bases and spoken with all the elected officials at the city, I'd be more comfortable going out and having more general information shared about EACs. I won't go through the rest of these, but just know that it means an ordinance is passed and ultimately bylaws are created, and we have examples from other EACs. I have saved those. I have those as reference materials, and we could also consult the other EACs I've spoken with in the development of those foundational ideas. And then lastly, and this is the one I wanted to make sure we talked about, is I have strategic plans and documents from other EACs. Because it's a group of only 7 residents, there's a limited capacity for the first couple of years, and they have to stay focused in order to accomplish their priorities. Having a 1 to 2 year strategic plan and a shared vision and consensus is essential for that. So I have some examples of that, and I spoke with We Can Serve PA, which manages the EAC network, and they agreed that they could come in and do a facilitated meeting in the development of some sort of set of goals and priorities for the EAC, which might include those members, but also as many elected officials as feel they want to be involved in that process, representatives of the mayor's office, and potentially others from the community that would be concerned about these matters. So I would absolutely recommend that, and our group is happy to help facilitate that, set that up, and participate as well, given the knowledge that we've accumulated. But if you have any questions about this roadmap, I would really encourage you to reach out. This is probably the most important part of the presentation because it maps out what our expectations are for you all. My hope would be, if you're favorable to this idea, that we'd have an EAC up and running early next year. That seems achievable given all of the resources we've compiled, including the draft ordinances and bylaws. So I've got my contact information here. Please feel free to write it down and reach out to me, but I'm also happy to flag any questions if there's space and time to do so.
First of all, Jenny, I want to thank you for doing this. And I see Art Leopold in the audience. Janice Etchinson isn't here. But kind of back up to Earth Day of this year, I had proposed that we do an environmental or sustainability task force. And I envisioned that we could model it on the Historic Review Commission task force that we had, which led to the creation of the Historic Review Commission. And Art contacted me and said, well, do you know about environmental advisory councils? And I did not. So he is the one who brought this to my attention. So it was like, okay, we don't have to do the task force. We could, there's something already in place. So I really appreciate Art bringing this to our attention. You know, we've had discussions. Chuck's been deeply involved in looking at ways to both save money and help the environment with recycling programs. Michael and Ed have asked about electric vehicles, but I know that we have one person working on sustainability for the city of Erie, so we're looking for different ways to build capacity, and being able to do it this way just seemed really attractive and doable to me. There's one other thing I was going to ask you that you could mention. You talk about 1973. I'm not sure if that's at the same time. I don't know if people know that the Pennsylvania Constitution guarantees our right to clean air. And if you could just tell people that, because I think that that is such an amazing thing that we should not only celebrate, but figure out how to make sure that we're living up to what our Constitution says. And it was the result of one person advocating for that for a long time. So if you could just tell people about that, that would be
absolutely.
great.
So our last constitutional convention was in 1968, and our constitution was approved in 1971. So yes, the EAC could be part of a movement toward building capacity around the environment in Pennsylvania. But at the time, that was a really progressive concept, was to have a state constitutional right to clean air, clean water, and clean land. And it basically makes the case that the public has a right to those clean resources, but also the ability to advocate for themselves when they are not clean. And I think that's a huge part of the work that Penn Future is doing across the Commonwealth in giving voice to people who are advocating when their constitutional rights have been wronged, essentially. Does that provide enough context?
That's fine.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions for Jenny? She also comes to her current job with experience as a city planner at Meadville, so she understands how government works and how the layers that you have to reach out to. So any
Just want to
questions
clarify,
for
county
Jenny?
planning,
Okay.
assistant planning director in Crawford, yeah.
Any questions?
I'm going to consider that being comprehensive enough that you couldn't possibly have any questions then. Well, I know it was a lot, so please process it and reach back out to me. I'm happy to leave that contact information too electronically.
And I will tell you, Jenny is very efficient in presenting information. Most of what I've learned from Jenny has been during walks. She's been working at Radius Co-work, very useful walks. So you get your exercise, you get to help the environment by just walking, and you get to learn something. So
Yeah,
I'm sure
please
she'd
take
do
a
any
walk
walks.
with me, along the water in particular.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much.
Madam President, I do recognize a lot of names on that list, and they're good people. So if you're responsible for it, good job.
Thank you, and some of them are in the audience, as President Allen referenced.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
very
I see
thankful.
Freda out there too, thank you.
Yes.
Is John here, John Vanko, or Pat Lupo? Anybody I didn't miss?
Stand up.
Okay, I saw Fred, okay. And who else is back there?
I'm back on the question, Debbie. Anybody have questions? Am I allowed to ask a question?
Real quick, so that, because we have the,
All right, with this tree thing, that I'm wondering how long it really takes to get a bad tree out of the way. I'm in the minority neighborhood, and the tree is not only bad, it's also in a spot where it causes people who don't belong there to want to come and hover, and it's right in front of my place. And so I've been talking about this tree for years. How long does it take to talk and complain about a tree before you can get some attention? Even if somebody from the city would come down and look and see what I'm talking about. It's already pushed up the pavement. Someone was sitting out there on my walk every day brushing their teeth with juice and just use it to hide and do whatever they're going to do. The tree needs to go. And it also blocks lighting at night.
okay. I don't think Jenny would directly do that right now, but I think we can make sure that we get your contact information, okay? Who wants to get the information about the tree and the block?
Do you want me to respond to it directly? too?
Yes, you can respond
Okay,
also.
so first of all, thank you for asking that. We have Sarah Peelman here, who's actually the city's arborist. So Sarah's been helping with our group, and she's fantastic. I can't say enough how great it's been to have Sarah on our team. Sarah is fantastic at everything she does, but she also wears a lot of hats, which makes her great, but also makes it difficult sometimes for her to do everything with every tree in the city. So please get in contact with Sarah. I'm also reluctant to ever call a tree a bad tree. So trees provide so many benefits for our community, cooling our urban areas, providing so many resources, and stormwater benefits as well. So I'm reluctant ever to say there's a bad tree, but I trust that this one in particular is causing problems. The city of Erie also has the benefit of having an urban forest committee, which is another body with public meetings that you can bring issues to. And they're the current entity that Sarah oversees. So I encourage you, please reach out to her about those meetings too, and you can raise concerns. Okay, so the Urban Forest Committee too, I would recommend as well. And Sarah can help connect with Public Works and any other groups that might be able to tackle that specific issue. So thank you again, and if you have any other questions about EAC, I'm going to hang around afterward. All right, anything else? Thank you very much.
Okay, we're ready for our next presentation. Mr. Borgia with the Pickleball Association.
First of all, I want to thank City Council for inviting us to make our presentation about pickleball courts, specifically adding pickleball courts to Baldwin Park. I'm not going to be very long-winded here, but because we're going to put on a PowerPoint presentation. But before I go any further, I want to introduce some of our people that are on our staff. Tom Wazinski, stand up. He's our vice president. Elena Arnold, she's our coordinator, our website coordinator, and Jim Parado, he's our treasurer. There's a couple people that are missing today, but what I want to talk about very briefly is I've been working with Chuck Zist for 4 years. And the reason I've been working with him is we had to pick out a site in Erie proper to add courts. And the site that we picked out was Baldwin Park. Some of you have been at Baldwin Park. A couple of months ago, I guess, we had a taco party. And I think you were really enlightened by what you saw. But in order for us to grow this sport in Erie, because we started our EPPA organization 1 year ago, last April. Actually, it's been 16 months roughly. So we have 200 members. They're paying members. They pay a fee every year. And we hold on tournaments, clinics, a lot of other things. And you'll see the body that's here today, a lot of people. I applaud you for coming. But one of the things I want to share with everybody, there's a national magazine that's called Pickleball Magazine. In Erie, Pennsylvania, we wrote an article, and it was about Erie, PA, about Baldwin Park, and about the growth of the sport, and that was in the magazine a couple months ago. I think, Chuck, you got a copy of that. So the other thing I want to just, and I'll turn this over to Elaine, I want to thank the Erie Sports Commission. Mark and Ben are here someplace. I want to thank them for their support, because our goal, if we have these courts made, these 6 courts, we can hold sanctioned tournaments here, which will bring people into Erie. They'll stay at hotels, and they'll buy a lot of food. And that's the whole key. But without further ado, I'm going to have Elena come up, and she's going to do the PowerPoint presentation about where we're at.
Thank you for this opportunity, letting us be here today. We really appreciate it. The 3 gentlemen sitting behind me started the Erie Pickleball Players Association about 14 months ago, and we've grown in that time to 200 members, which I think is a huge accomplishment. Some people in this audience don't even know what pickleball is, though, so we're going to enlighten you today about the sport, how fun it is. We invite you all to come learn how to play. We have some amazing teachers of pickleball in the crowd, so please join us at any time. Do I have the clicker? Do you want me to click through? So like Bob said, my name's Elena Arnold. I run the website for the Erie Pickleball Players Association. Here are some of the lovely faces that are members. Pickleball is a paddle sport for all ages. Our youngest member is 15, and our oldest member is in her mid-80s. So you can see that that spans many generations. A draw of this sport, very easy to learn. If we got you out on the courts in 20 minutes, you could have some skill playing pickleball. It appeals to all ability levels. Even if you're not a stellar athlete, you will be. It's very fun to play. It's an extremely social sport. When you're sitting between matches, you're making friends on the bench. And minimal equipment is needed to play pickleball. So what do you need? You need a paddle, you need a pickleball, and you need a place to play. We all have paddles, we all have pickleballs. We're struggling with places to play. We have lots of eager members and minimal courts in the city of Erie. So that's where we need your help. What does the Erie Pickleball Players Association do? And moving forward, I'm just going to refer to it as the EPPA because that is a mouthful. We promote a healthy and active lifestyle because we introduce pickleball to all ages. We organize tournaments. We schedule open play time. We have a GroupMe app every day that's just blowing up with messages about who's playing where, setting up games. We host social events in the neighborhood, especially Baldwin Park. We had our Taco Tuesday, which several of you were at. We've had pizza nights. We've had, on Sunday, Mambo, which Julio, who plays in Mambo, is a pickleball player, and he's going to be playing in Baldwin Park. So that's very exciting for us this Sunday. We take care of the courts. No matter where we're playing, we leave them better than when we found them. We act as pickleball ambassadors. Lots of us travel to different areas and really try to put Erie on the map as far as pickleball goes. And we help run lots of clinics. We just finished a 6-week clinic in Baldwin Park every Wednesday at 11. We also partnered with the Erie City Mission, their urban university, and we mentored youth 7th to 12th grade and taught them how to play. Here are some pictures from that clinic with some quotes that I won't read them all to you, but the big standout to me here is that these 7th to 12th graders were saying that pickleball is fun. It's hard to get a 7th to 12th grader to say anything is fun. I can say that as a teacher. I know, I speak from experience. So that was very rewarding to all of us that participated in that service. As Bob mentioned, we are making news not only locally, which is awesome, but also nationally. Parade Magazine, Pickleball Magazine, several other publications is really helping us drive this momentum going forward in Erie. Oops, I didn't mean to click on that. All right, so we are obviously located between 3 bigger cities, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, and Cleveland, which have thriving pickleball communities. There's room at Baldwin and other city parks to grow this sport. If we grow it, people will come. They will come to Erie. We know Erie's absolutely gorgeous in the summer. Prime time to play pickleball. They will bring money. They will spend money in the city of Erie. Win-win for everybody. As Bob said, tournaments are going to bring revenue. Tournaments run usually from Friday through Sunday. They attract players, spectators, and vendors. Many players that come to play in these tournaments are from out of town, so they'll stay in the hotels, they'll go to restaurants, stores, and local attractions. According to usapickleball.org, the average player spends between $130 to $155 a day while at the tournament, and that is not including tournament fees. That's spending money on food, lodging, etc. I speak from experience by going to these out-of-town tournaments that that's a very conservative estimate. They're spending more than that. Here are some nearby examples within 90 minutes drive of Erie that have really taken pickleball and run with it. Fredonia Park, which has a much smaller population than we do, Fredonia, New York, has a park that has 6 pickleball courts. Warren, also less than 40,000 residents, 6 designated pickleball courts. Harbor Creek, our neighbor to the east, they just did Whitford Park, which is absolutely gorgeous, 2 pickleball courts designated. Mentor, Ohio is one of the meccas of pickleball, 15 courts, and again, their population is less than 50,000 people. Our neighbors to the south, Cranberry Township, 16 courts, they're building 8 more by next year, 31,560 residents. And Mercer, PA, also very nearby, 6 courts, gorgeous designated pickleball courts in Buell Park, 1,800 residents. So we just want to give you a picture of what we're working with right now in Erie. We have 3 designated pickleball courts in the city of Erie. The latest population that I could get from census.gov was 93,999. We have 1 designated court at Bayview Park, and it's actually a tennis net, so it's not a true pickleball court, but we still appreciate it. And we have 2 courts at Baldwin Park that are designated pickleball courts with permanent nets. So that's 3 courts in the city of Erie. I went yesterday and took pictures of the courts just to give you a true picture of what they look like right now. So as you can see, Bayview does have another multi-purpose court that's on the far left. So it can be used for volleyball. There is a volleyball net set up there right now. The one next door is the pickleball court, but with the tennis net. So that does really impact the game. Once you learn how to play, you'll understand. You can't get around that tennis net with some of your pickleball shots. Baldwin Park, this is the back. You're probably more familiar with the big blue wall and the beautiful painted courts out front, but this is the back where we want more courts to be installed, and that's what it looks like currently. So you can see it's kind of a dangerous setting to play due to all the cracks and the weeds that are growing there. So in comparison, this just shows you Erie's the green, how we stack up around those other places within 90 minutes. How many courts we have per 10,000 people. So what can we do about this? We want to help the parks. We spend a lot of time in Baldwin Park. Every morning if you drive by, you're going to see so many people sitting behind me. They're playing, socializing. There's been several times that we clean up the parks. We go in the morning and there might be bottles or cans and we pick them up, throw them away. We're a positive presence in the neighborhood. There's so many people that walk their dogs through the park or ride their bikes through the park and they stop and say, "What are you doing? What is this sport that you're playing?" And we teach them how to play, or we at least explain it, and oftentimes they come back. We have a couple people here today that are neighbors that learn just by driving by or walking by and seeing us playing. We want to bring money to Erie through the local stores, restaurants, and we really want to promote an active outdoor lifestyle. So many of our members are retired, and they are spending hours a day playing pickleball and making friends and building relationships. And I just think that that's amazing. And I can't wait to be retired to join them all the time. Other ways that we can help Baldwin specifically, and this was just a very quick brainstorming, but we could do something like a lending library or a butterfly garden would be easy to plant. And we have the volunteers willing to help with this. Community gardens have been very successful in the Erie School District. The kids help with the gardens and then they get to harvest what they grow and take it home and cook with it. We can do pickleball pickup days where we go around and pick up the garbage, although we do already do that. And we can have art days where you decorate the garbage cans and recycle bins because they're more likely to be used then. We really want to work together with you. We have so many eager participants. If you're part of the Pickleball Association, can you raise your hand, please? And if we call on them, they're going to show up. So if we can collaborate with you, if we can build up Baldwin Park, we'll be there to help, and we'll be there to help maintain it. If you have any questions, our website's erieppa.org. There's a contact us. All of us on the board are more than willing to answer questions, as are all of our members. So I just want to say thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it. We hope that you will join us. Maybe we'll see you Sunday when Mambo is playing in Baldwin Park. So thanks again, and have a wonderful day. If you have any questions, I can try to answer them.
What time is the event on Sunday?
The drum circle starts at 4 on Sunday, and then Mambo starts playing at 6.
Okay, that's part of the City of Erie's
Yes.
Sunday events. Okay, questions from council?
Over here. So we took one poll. So I have another poll. How many of the pickleball associations live within the city limits? Thank you.
How many of your members live in that neighborhood?
Raise your hand, Carl. How many live in the Baldwin Park neighborhood? And we would like to say, too, that we have several members that couldn't be here today because they're at work. So we want to include them in our membership as well.
Madam President, if I may, 7, 8 years ago, we visited a son-in-law of one of my buddies who's doing a nice job in the Chicago area. We got invited to a very exclusive country club, and I was introduced to pickleball. It was a rich man's sport.
Not anymore.
They're taking the tennis courts. It's wonderful that you're bringing this down to every people, our kind of people.
Thank you.
I love it, and I'm 100% behind you.
I hope you come play at Baldwin.
As soon as my back.
You know some of these guys. They'll show you how to play.
Mr. Bourne, you'll get me. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah. We're going to move on to the next part of the agenda, and thanks everyone for coming today.
there anyone in the audience here to speak on repository sales? Anyone here to speak on repository sales? Anyone to speak on behalf of a repository sale? Okay.
I'm just going to echo Lori. Any repository sales people here? Lori, I think we're ready for public comments then.
My name is Freda Tepfer. I live at 1738 West 23rd Street, and I started the Baldwin Park next door neighborhood. I live probably about 3 or 4 blocks from Baldwin Park. So in a lifetime of working in public involvement and decision making, I'm used to kind of an orderly process of how things are done. That never happened here. The first time I got wind something was going on was when I heard trees being cut down in our park. And city parks don't belong in the Public Works Department. City parks belong somewhere where there is a true commitment to working with people and neighborhoods, not the idea of we do projects. The only time that the neighborhood was asked about this project was when some flyers were put up on some people's houses. My concern is that this is a very nice, quiet neighborhood park. I can't even imagine what it would be like if there was a tournament there. How many cars? What kind of... I walk through that park all the time. My experience coming from Burst down through the park has been permanently altered by the removal of the trees. But now the proposal of providing parking there, paved parking, is going to permanently change the whole way that park looks coming into it from the east. It's our park, but it's been invaded. And I think it's fine if they want to use the courts there. But the idea, the way parking has been managed has never been done correctly. They never should have allowed angle parking in a street that narrow and that busy. And so now, because of that, they're creating this parking lot where we used to have trees. Actually, a block away, there's a lot that's vacant almost all the time. They could rent that lot and turn it into parking. They could rent that lot and turn it into more pickleball courts. But I don't want to see Disneyland in Baldwin Park. I'm okay with people coming there and playing their game, but I don't really want to see it as a destination tourist spot for tournaments. I also think that the city needs to have a true neighborhood involvement process for parks. The city is trying to force on us a greenway on the east side, and I'm concerned that that's just going to be more gentrification. I never heard of the Taco Tuesday. I wasn't invited. And yesterday when I was there with Chuck Zisk, one of the people who says he's in our neighborhood, but he's actually on the other side of West 26th, he was talking about the area that was cleared, and he said, it's a jungle there. There's bushes and animals. And I said, oh, you mean it's habitat? And there's wildlife in the city? And then he talked about how people drink there in the bushes, and there was a homeless person. And then it turned out that when he was a kid, he used to drink there. Kids are going to drink somewhere, for God's sakes. Are we going to sanitize the whole city so nobody can drink anywhere? I just want to see a reasonable process for park management, and this is not it. This is not the way to do park planning and park public participation. I also am concerned about ordinance number 16302, and I would suggest that you put something in there. This is about the contractors, about the responsibility of contractors to ensure pedestrian access, that they, and in the snow removal and in construction, and that they have to pay to close the sidewalks, and that they not be allowed to do that. I also want to urge again the city to develop a traffic mitigation ordinance. You're going to have all these trucks coming into the IRG facility on Downing in a residential neighborhood, and you have now no mechanism for doing traffic mitigation. Thank you.
Good morning, members of council. My name is Sheila Ellen Woger, and I reside at 2011 Fairmount Parkway here in the city of Erie, Pennsylvania. Reading from Proverbs 29:2, it reads, "When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked ruleth, the people mourn." The African American community in Erie, as well as other groups of poor people, are mourning. Gentrification is a process whereby the character of a poor urban area is changed by wealthier people moving in, improving housing, and attracting new businesses, typically displacing current inhabitants in the process. It wasn't enough that the county built a prison on Erie's east side, but businesses are operating in assumed names, specifically Pole Landscaping is operating as Pro Waste Management in what was an African American community that was supported by no other than Councilman Mel Witherspoon. Shame on you. The toll that it has taken on the citizens, their health, shame on you, Mel Witherspoon. Racism is a learned behavior.
Could you not address council people individually, please?
Well, I'm sorry, but I just want to be specific to let the people know who supported the gentrification on Erie's east side. Racism is a learned behavior, and only an omnipotent God can change the heart of an evil man. Racism is not innate. It's not something you are born with. Racism is taught. And systemic racism in Erie is rampant. I wish I could say, oh yes, we want a pickleball machine on Erie's east side. We need affordable housing on Erie's east side. When you know that there are people living in homes that, according to this administration, should be condemned, shame on you. I also want to speak on item 3, an ordinance that's going to be appropriating $100,000, and surely I haven't been here 5 minutes. But I will send you, I have your emails.
No,
Excuse me?
you still have time.
Thank you. But I wanted to present something to you today to show you the gentrification that is occurring on Erie's east side. When I first saw it, and I took a video of it today, I wanted to show it to you today, it brought tears to my eyes to see how people's homes are being devoided of natural light. One resident, because of the stress, I'm sure, is living in a fetal position. Another young man is wheelchair bound, the stress of seeing their community destroyed. Shame on the city of Erie, because the poor is going to be with you always. We're not going anywhere. So it's time that you make room for us. Item 3, $100,000 being appropriated for housing. $100,000, and then you're going to only allocate the homeowners $4,000, and you know the house is already condemned. That wouldn't cover a roof. I've had work done to my home through Erie redevelopment, and I was left in worse shape than when I started, and I contributed to the mess. And what's $100,000 when you can give $14.5 million to the police? What is $100,000? What is $4,000 when my house is considered condemned? What is that going to do for me or any other homeowner when we've already been taxed out of our homes? And you will sure be quick to take that. Let me get behind in my taxes. Come on, people. You're a government supposedly for the people, but you're against the people. $100,000? Let's be real. Would you be satisfied with that? But see, we all go to our homes. I thank God I have a home. But I can't sleep at night thinking of those that don't have a home, that don't have a bed. And the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, billions of dollars in surplus fund. For whose rainy day? It's raining on the poor today. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is James Parado. I live in Harbor Creek Township. The whole idea of pickleball is to revitalize these parks.
Say your address, too. We have people give their addresses, okay?
What?
Just give your address.
My address is 382 Bonnie Bray,
Thank you.
Erie, Pennsylvania, but it's a Harbor Creek address. Thank you, dear. The whole idea of pickleball really is to revitalize parks. We had a park in Harbor Creek, Howard Whitford Park, that was hardly used. Now we have a basketball court there that's used all the time. We have 2 pickleball courts that are used all the time. And people come by and say, wow, this place really looks nice. Now people are renting pavilions, and the whole park has been revitalized. That's what we want to do with Baldwin. And I can go around to parks in Erie that there's nobody at. They're completely empty. Our whole idea is to bring something good to Erie that not only will revitalize the parks, but also make a lot of money for Erie. And I thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Haverly, and I was not planning on speaking today, but I am a member of the board of directors of
Rebecca, don't forget address, too, okay?
Oh, I live
Address.
in Mill Creek?
Yeah, but say your address.
Oh, 4060 Avondale Court.
Thanks much.
Okay, so I'm a member of the board of directors of the Norbert Hardner Foundation. Some of you may have heard of it or not. We've given a lot of donations in Erie to the Erie Zoo, Community of Caring, Serve Erie, the food bank, on and on. One of our donations last year was a grant to the city of Erie, specifically for funding for the courts of Baldwin Park. So the city has accepted the money that we gave to them, and I was under the impression that these courts would be built. So I'm just concerned that the funding is not being used as it was allocated. And I hope very much to see these courts in Baldwin Park be built. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm TJ Sandell, 2712 Plum Street. Good morning, council members. Thank you for allowing me the privilege to speak here today. I'm the president of the Great Lakes Building and Construction Trades Council, and I'm also the business representative for Plumbers Union Local 27. I've been a city licensed plumber for more than 20 years, and I've spent almost all of my adult career in the plumbing construction field. I'm also known by my colleagues to be an expert in the construction industry. I have served on this city on multiple authorities, and I'm coming before you today to ask for your support of the UCC Code Update Ordinance. There are a multitude of reasons why I support this update. There's not enough time for me to go through every reason, so I'll quickly outline the important ones. Number one, public safety. Cities with licensing requirements have safer structures because of higher standards of workmanship according to relevant codes, permits, and proper inspections. It's really absurd to me that you need to have a license to be a barber, but you do not need to have one to install a fire suppression sprinkler system. And I don't have to tell you about what happened at that daycare recently about how important sprinkler systems really are. And this will address that issue. Protecting the consumer and accountability. Licensing helps reduce fraud for the consumer, creates a level of trust and comfortability. Consumers can ask to see a company's license and state registration. There are repercussions in this ordinance for unscrupulous companies conducting fraudulent activity. For example, Plumbers Local 27 worked in conjunction with the State Attorney General's office in a fraud case against a local contractor, using misleading information to coerce consumers to unnecessarily replace their sanitary sewers for astronomically inflated prices. This contractor was convicted. Increasing enforcement will greatly reduce this type of criminal activity. Economic benefits for the city. Permitting and licensing helps fund the code office, which in my opinion is stretched very thin. The city for the past 20 years has lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue due to lack of enforcement and permitting. This is a problem that needs corrected. I would like to note, however, that this is no way the fault of the code office. They have not had the ability to enforce it, mostly due to lack of manpower, as you are likely aware. However, Andy Zimmerman and his staff do an excellent job with the resources they have available to them. Number 4, economic benefits for workers. Licensing promotes more competitive wages for workers. Having a license in the trade is comparable to having a college degree. It shows that you have an equitable skill in your particular trade, which creates a condition of better and more competitive wages. Number 5, keeping local work done by local workers. Licensing promotes the growth of local companies and the creation of new companies. For example, the Downtowner Hotel, and I applaud the folks who redeveloped that facility, but the fact of the matter is 80% of the people who worked on that construction project were from out of state. And that's absurd to me. We need to keep local workers on local projects. It's not fair to our workforce. They don't live here, pay taxes here, or have a stake in once the work is completed. Their reputation isn't on the line for the future. Work in Erie should be done by workers from Erie to the highest degree possible. Everyone should agree with that. Many out-of-state contractors bring their workforces here, take the money and leave. There's no economic benefit for our city or our workers. Lastly, licensing programs promotes the growth of apprenticeship programs. I can only speak for the administrative programs by the building trades, but as many of you know, we work very hard to grow these programs. It is the policy of the building trades to actively recruit minorities, as we are a firm believer in diversity and equity. We work with a number of organizations to try to reach these goals. Strengthening apprenticeships leads to a highly skilled and diverse local workforce. I hope that you found this information useful, and I thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Maria Carano. I live at 1911 West 24th Street. I live 2 houses down from Baldwin Park. And since the pickleball people have been there and they fixed up the courts there, it's been so nice to see kids in the neighborhood playing, young people coming over playing basketball, bringing their children over and playing basketball with them. I've actually brought my grandchildren now over to the playground, which I would never do before because the park never seemed safe or clean enough before to bring them over there. I feel safer walking through the park now. And it really, I mean, it simply just brings a lot of joy to a lot of people now where before it didn't. And people would go to different parks in the city to take their families, their children and stuff like that because that park was so neglected. And now it's actually a park where you feel like you can go and bring your family there and have a good time. As far as the parking goes, I mean, that one piece of property that we've talked about where the trees have already been cut down, it's not going to be, we're not talking about 500 cars being parked there. I mean, we're lucky if we probably get maybe 20 cars there, 20 more cars there, and a few more cars on this street. I mean, I understand about the parking. I don't want people parking in our neighborhoods to go over there. But it's not like there would be that many people at one time there parking in the neighborhood. We've got little kids now that come over and play pickleball. I mean, it's just so nice to see somebody use the park in that neighborhood. I grew up in that neighborhood, and now I live in that neighborhood again. It used to be called the Pits. It was horrible. And you know what? We played it in when we were kids with it like that. But now it's an actual place that we can say is a decent place for neighbors to go to. And so many neighbors all around that area come there now. And it would be a shame that we wouldn't be able to bring more people in there. We've got people coming in from Florida and North Carolina for the summer that come and play there. So it's being used. It's not like it's not being used. There are people there every day using that park. And I understand Baldwin Park is like at the end of the city. So it's like we're like Mill Creek, Erie City, whatever. And we don't get a lot of stuff over there. And we're very thankful that we have this little park. And it's the first time in my life, like I said, I've been there forever, that I'm really proud of that park in that neighborhood. Because before it was just a bunch of kids maybe selling drugs on the street there or, you know, drinking in the park at night. And we just don't see that anymore. It's really been cleaned up, and we appreciate it. And we appreciate all that's been done so far, but 6 more courts really would make a world of difference there for us to play on, and we would appreciate that you would be able to do that.
Thank you.
Morning, thank you for your time. My name's Peter Fries. I live in the area also. 2 blocks is a crow's fly.
Just say your address, though, Peter.
Oh, Peter Fries, 1823 West 22nd Street,
Thanks
City of
much.
Erie. As I mentioned, I'm down 2 streets and to the right, so on a perfect day, when I'm drinking my morning coffee, I can hear that little faint pickleball sound, which is really nice. But anyways, just to expound on everybody else's comments, the area has improved vastly. Everything from indigent people sleeping in the racquetball courts, urination smell, drinking, drugs, just a world of difference. It's a great community. Erie should have more courts. You're losing out because people are going elsewhere. So I just want to say Mr. Borgia and his crew have done a great job. And we need more. Not just Baldwin, we need them all over the place. And bringing revenue in, good vibes, and healthier people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Marilyn Zaffino Gentile, and I moved into the neighborhood 1916 West 24th, 2009. I was so happy to have a park where I could take my grandkids, I could walk my dog, but I soon found that it really wasn't at the healthiest environment. I have found drug paraphernalia there. I'm not sure of the years because I did not think I'd be reporting it later, but I'm thinking it was about 2014 that in the morning, walking in the park, nobody else around, I find a body in the handball court. And I had to call the police. They said they'd be there. And because I was alone, I went back to my corner of the world and waited. I did hear the sirens. I never got the outcome of what happened. And then fast forward maybe 2 years, I find someone passed out in the park. And there were just a few kids playing on the basketball court. They were totally oblivious of the corner where this gentleman was. I called 911, and of course the firefighters came first, had a hard time reviving him, and then he became very belligerent. And again, things that kids shouldn't hear, shouldn't see. And the park predominantly, in my estimation, is for family and children. And when I see things like that, I don't want to take my family. There are my children there for a picnic. But again, fast forward to where the pickleball courts came in, that disappeared. Nobody wanted to make their home in the park because it was too many people. Nobody wanted to start fights that I've seen because there's too many people to interfere with them. It is a happy place now. I see families out with their kids and their strollers and their puppies, and it's a whole different environment. And I think a neighborhood that has a park, the people should allow their kids to go play. We have a nice playground, but there was a long time, and this was prior to the pandemic, that you didn't see a lot of kids there because I wouldn't have sent my kids up there. And the restoration of the park for what it should be is now there. We want to expand on it because we see so much activity that's positive. We don't see the negative. I'm a former drug and alcohol counselor, and so I recognize the behaviors, I recognize the materials. I'm not seeing it. I just think it's just the most positive thing that could happen for our neighborhood, and I think we could expand upon it. And, you know, people can speak money for this, money for that, for housing or lodging or restaurants or whatever. The children need a safe place to play, and they're safe. There's all these adults that they're watching. They sit and watch like they're the audience. And so that, to me, is the most important, that it's a much healthier, safer environment for the families in that neighborhood, or any families that want to come join us. That, to me, is just as important as any, maybe more so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Council. My name is Andre Francis. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to us today.
Don't forget to say your address.
Sure. Sorry about that. I live on 2527 Poplar Street, but I am a child of the area. I grew up in Meadville. I attended Edinburgh University, and after there, I moved to Erie and attended LECOM. I would just like to approach this from a slightly different perspective, because I think something that's underrated about pickleball is how much of a restorative health, physical therapy effect it has versus other sports and activities that are open to the public in the area, which do not afford the same opportunities. I attended LECOM for 2 years until I developed spondylolisthesis, which prevented me from walking, from sitting, and I lost mainly my ability to walk more than half a block for over 2 years. This sport, in playing for 8 years, has allowed me to restore my physical health, restore my athletic abilities, and pursue playing the sport on a somewhat serious level and really enjoy myself. And that I am not a minority in. It is not something for just the elderly, and it is not something for just elementary students to play in a school. My wife plays. I can now take my little cousins to that same park where I have been many times and would never have visited again, because before pickleball was there and before I knew what it even was, it was not a healthy, safe place. But this sport is really offering so many opportunities to people who do not have access to other forms of athletic exercise, which are inclusive of people with different athletic and disabled levels. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments?
Good morning. My name is Jim Cairns, and I live on 10 Peninsula Drive. I'm not an Erie resident, but I go to Baldwin Park quite a bit. I've been there probably 10 years ago. A friend of mine said there were racquetball courts, and I went there. And in the racquetball courts, there were condoms, there was toilet paper, and there looked like some broken, I don't know, debris of drug paraphernalia or whatever it is. I'm not really familiar with it. And I thought, wow, what a dump. This place is not a place I really want to come back to. And now, if you go there, you'll see that it's a living and a breathing place. Just the other day, Maria put out a message to us, that anybody wants to play, let's go to Baldwin. So, like it was a flash game, right? 2 o'clock in the afternoon, play for a couple hours. Just on Saturday, these are anecdotes, just so you know, this place is really alive now. We were playing some pickleball. We have a group that comes in 8:30, 9 for me. But played a few hours, it's around noon, and family, it was like a family reunion or something, started walking down and watching us, and they had their pickleball stuff and their picnic stuff and tents and chairs, and we were like, hey, let's get off the court. We've been playing for a while. Let's let these guys on. There are only 2 courts. So, it was important for them. It was a place to go. So this is something that's alive, all right? And if you neglect it, it'll die. It'll be the dump that it was. So I hope that you give that a lot of consideration. There's not a lot on that side of Erie, and I think it's a big enhancement to the area. And I guess that's about all I want to say, and thank you for your attention.
Jim, what was your last name?
Cairns, with a C. Thank you.
Bob Borgia, 4215 Caroline Drive, Erie, PA. Finishing comment on my side so everybody knows this. Everything we do in Erie, as far as pickleball tournaments, get-togethers, we use local companies. Creative Imprints, Teresa's Deli, Bacardi Printing, and I just want you to know that. So we try to spend all of our money here, with awards and whatever else we have to buy. And I just want to thank everybody for attending this meeting, and thank you for your attention.
Any other comments from the audience? Okay. We want to make sure everybody gets their chance to speak.
My name is Carl Gentile. I live at 1916 West 24th. I've lived within 100 yards of the park for over 50 years. My family's been in that area within 100 yards for over 100 years. I play pickleball. My grandchildren have played in the park. My great-grandchildren have played in the park. And I play in the park. Before it was Baldwin Park, my father and all his brothers played in that area on top of the hill before it was a park. There's not much noise. The place is a whole lot cleaner than it's ever been, and a lot of the residents in the area use it, not just for pickleball. They walk in it, they stroll in it, they ride their bikes in it, and it's a nice place to be in the city of Erie. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank, do we have anybody online?
Madam President, Robert Britton is online.
Yes.
Mr. Britton, you can be heard. You can now speak. Please give your address.
Okay, my name is Rob Britton, and I live at 1235 Yetta Avenue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Formerly reside at 205 East 21st Street. Good morning. Good morning. I'm here in regards to the Britton Funeral Home, and for the memorial. I've been here now, and I want to thank Liz. We're going in our 2nd year on this, and I'm a little disappointed. Maybe for some of you that don't know me, I ran for mayor many moons ago. Mel will probably remember that, and the first black man to ever do it. And I've been a past member of the Human Relations way back. But kind of fast forwarding things, I remember we had Erie Irresistible with me and Mr. DePlacido. It was over the Erie Chamber of Commerce, Erie Times, did an article. And the idea was, is it really irresistible? Is it really irresistible? And I said, maybe it's for some, but not for all. Unfortunately, I think that has not changed. After hearing all these comments this morning, while pickleball, and I think it's outstanding that these citizens have come here this morning for their neighborhoods. that while they're playing pickleball, I'm over there trying to get my dad's memorial from the Baldwin brothers through the redevelopment who took that whole property and just, I don't know, they took our neighborhood, as a young lady had said before, and the redevelopment, they have done so much damage in the past that I think it's almost time for reparations in Erie from the redevelopment for what they have done. While the Bayfront flourishes, the zip code 16504 goes downhill, and it's almost discouraging to ride through and see those homes which people still live in. I want to get specific this morning in regards to my request, though. I'm first going to your council file ordinance 16300, and that's the one with the $30,000 for the Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission. And I want to thank particularly Melinda over there. They've been outstanding. I'm supposed to pick up the marker, praise God. Hopefully I'll get that call today or by Friday that it's done. We just haven't got the go-ahead to put it over where it should go. And that ground is almost being sacred to us now at 1524 Peach Street. And so my point here is that while that discussion goes on for final passage and training those people, I wish they would get some training on racism, that there's truly some racism, that everybody is not happy to host these black markers coming out of the black community. And I want to make us aware of that. And 1 or 2 millionaires or whatever should not stand in the way of us putting a hole in the ground to commemorate the people who have made our community part of our history. Very important part of our history that finally is being told. So I really, as you have that discussion, I hope that there can be some sensitivity that there are certain racial issues involved in this historical commission that need to be addressed, particularly in the training of those members of the commission and those elected officials. I want to move right on to your next new business, and that's got to do with Mel Weatherspoon and the day, and I want to congratulate Mr. Hurd, and I'm requesting that the same be done for my dad. And I had tried to get August 17th, which is in 2 weeks, and I don't know whether that's going to still happen, but if it doesn't, can we at least get the proclamation to declare Robert B. Britton's Day on August 17th by the mayor and his full support of that, as you have done for Mr. Hurd, who was his birthday. And thank God he was alive. And I want to thank that family that they could see their dad. But nevertheless, though my dad is not alive, we're committed that he should have the same type of thing that you had this morning for Mr. Hurd, that proclamation from council and the mayor. So I hope someone will get on that proclamation and have it for the next council meeting, which is exactly on his birthday. Finally, I want to get to the resolution regarding Mr. Hagan and the, I believe it was this by Mr. Brzezinski, whereas they're going to change the street name and they want to make it a bigger and better sign and all of that. God bless them. And we really want the same thing, because that easement, I'm requesting, Liz, whoever the liaisons are for particular Bureau of Engineering as well as legal, that we can expedite this process at this point. Everything's been paid for. We just want to put a hole in the ground right there by the railroad tracks. Now, all of the legal ease is in this resolution that it be approved and that they authorize and designate that area and that easement, and it requires certain improvements, and that we will put them in, and that you will have the sign and it won't interfere with the sidewalk. And whereas you can go ahead and resolve it, and hoping to get that kind of resolution from legal, as well as looking into expediting the Bureau and Engineering, so we can hopefully get this done. This has been going on 2 years now, and I don't think it took Mr. Hurd 2 years to get this today, and I don't think it's taken Mr. Hagan as many signs he's already got 2 years to get another bigger and better sign. So I'm pleading with this council, please, one of the things I've been thinking about, council, your job is, and what we want you as citizens to do, is to get things done. So all new members who are not acquainted with this, familiarize yourself with this issue. And come on, this is a time of essence. And almost like the indigenous people, that spot is becoming sacred in terms of the black community, not just preachers and all of that, but entrepreneurs. And that's what we're trying to establish for our
Hey, Rob.
God bless you. My
Rob,
time is out. God bless you. Yes, Liz.
The 5 minutes are up,
Go
but
ahead.
be assured we are working on this. There have been a lot of emails flying back and forth, so we know the importance of August 17th.
Thank you.
Yeah, the resolution's actually all ready to go for the
Yeah.
17th.
Resolution ready to go for August 17th, okay? Thanks. Frank, was there anybody else? Okay. I think we're done with the public comment.
Ordinances for final passage. Council file number 16299, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $314,090 from unanticipated and unappropriated revenue and for the expenditure thereof in the City of Erie Paving and Sewer Fund. Funding is from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This is sponsored by Mr. Witherspoon, seconded by Mr. Troop. The council file ordinance bill number 16299, and now known as official file ordinance 40/2022, be finally passed by City Council. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. City Council pass official file ordinance 40/2022 by yeas 7, nays 0. Council file number 16300, official ordinance 41/2022, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $30,000 from unappropriated and unanticipated revenue for the expenditure thereof. Funding is from a certified local government grant by the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission to create a historic preservation program, hire a historic preservation planner, and conduct training for members of the Historical Review Commission and elected officials. Sponsored by Ms. Allen, seconded by Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Keys. The council file ordinance bill number 16300, and now known as official file ordinance 41/2022, be finally passed by City Council. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen.
Could we have the solicitor explain what unappropriated and unanticipated funds revenue mean?
Unappropriated and unanticipated. I mean, the term can be used in a number of different ways. We didn't expect the money coming in. It's now coming in, and typically it's in a grant, but it's coming from
it is coming in.
Usually an outside source when you didn't anticipate or expect to have the money. But we use that as a general term, and sometimes I don't know exactly where it came from. So when you ask, what does it mean here? I don't know this personally. I don't know the source of the grant. But when we did the budget and we did the numbers last year, we didn't know about this money. This is new money.
Okay, well, yeah, the thing is, those two words come up all the time, and when we speak, nobody knew what it was either, so I thought I'd...
As a general rule, when you see unanticipated and unappropriated, that's a good thing. That's money that we didn't think we had.
All right, mission accomplished.
City Council pass official file ordinance 41/2022 by yeas 7, nays 0. Council file number 16301, official ordinance 42/2022, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $100,000 to be received from the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency, PHFA, and made available through the Pennsylvania Housing Affordability and Rehabilitation Enhancement Fund, FAIR. The funding will be utilized to provide grants to low and moderate income owner occupants for repairs or improvements to their homes. Sponsored by Mr. Keys, seconded by Mr. Troop, the council file ordinance bill 16301, and now known as official file ordinance 42/2022, be finally passed by City Council. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. City Council pass official file ordinance 42/2022 by yeas 7, nays 0. Ordinances for first reading. Council file number 16302, an ordinance providing for the licensing of contractors and tradesmen doing business in the City of Erie, including requirements providing penalties and rights of appeal. Sponsored by Mr. Witherspoon. Seconded by Mr. Keys. The council file ordinance number 16302, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by City Council. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. City Council read and adopt council file ordinance 16302 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Council File Number 16303, and an ordinance appropriating the sum of $982,773 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue to provide for the expenditure thereof for the construction phase of 2022 Greenlight Go funding program, French Street Signal Upgrades Project. Sponsored by Mr. Nelson, seconded by Mr. Keys. The Council File Ordinance Number 16303, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by City Council. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. City Council read and adopt Council File Ordinance Number 16303 by yea 7, nay 0 on first reading. Council File Number 16304, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $47,895 from unappropriated and unanticipated revenue for the Baldwin Park Improvement Fund and providing for the expenditure thereof for the installation of 6 regulation pickleball courts and other associated upgrades at Baldwin Park located at West 23rd and Geist Avenue. Sponsored by Mr. Nelson, seconded by Mr. Keys. The Council File Ordinance Number 16304, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by City Council. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. City Council read and adopt Council File Ordinance 16304 by yea 7, nay 0 on first reading. Council File Number 16305, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $81,407.68 from unappropriated and unanticipated revenue for the expenditure thereof from the bond fund balance and will be used to pay for capital expenditures. Sponsored by Mr. Nelson, seconded by Mr. Brzezinski, the Council File Ordinance 16305, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by City Council. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. City Council read and adopt Council File Ordinance Number 16305 by yea 7, nay 0 on first reading. This takes us to new business.
Second.
Thank you. Separations?
Number 2.
Should we separate number 1 also, just so that everyone knows that we officially did that for Mr. Hurd? And Lori, I want to separate number 10 just so we can make sure people know about this public hearing coming up. This is not the approval of it, it's that we're going to have a public hearing about 2 waterfront conditional use applications.
Any other separations?
Give me a second. Number 7. You separated 10?
Yes. Any other separations?
So just to be clear, we're separating number 1 about Mr. Hurd, number 2,
about
the
Mr. Hagan.
resolution by about Mr. Hagan, number 7, which is about the PHFA Affordability Rehab Project, and number 10, the permission to advertise for a public hearing.
Yes.
Resolution sponsored by Mr. Witherspoon, seconded by Ms. Allen, that the Council of the City of Erie, today Erie City Council joins Erie Mayor Joe Schember to declare August 13th as William Hurd Senior Day in honor of Mr. Hurd's 100th birthday and to commemorate his service to our country, to his church, and to our community, and his devotion to his family. This commendation is hereby presented to Mr. Hurd, a loving husband, proud father, grandfather, brother-in-law, uncle, and avid sports fan. We extend to him our best wishes and blessings for this and many more happy and healthy birthdays to come. Discussion?
Lori, I just want to make sure we did approve the balance of the agenda, right? Did
Oh,
we?
yeah.
I don't think we did.
Let's
I think
do that.
You can do one
You can.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay. I just wanted to make sure we didn't forget that part.
Thank you for that. Okay, any discussion on Mr. Hurd's resolution? Mr. Brzezinski? Ms. Flores? Mr. Keys? Mr. Nelson? Mr. Troop? Mr. Witherspoon? Ms. Allen? Resolution adopts yea 7, nay 0. How about a motion to move the balance of the agenda?
Add the motion,
Right.
we have the
Mr.
second, we just have to
Voting
vote.
on the resolution, Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, and Ms. Allen.
Yay.
Okay. Now we're going to number 2.
Laura, you don't have to read the entire number 2 for Mr. Hagan. I just bring it back up. Just remind people that this man has put thousands and thousands, and I could go higher than that, of dollars back into our city. So anybody who has a problem with honoring that gentleman, maybe you hit your head when you had the problem. Call for a vote.
Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. Resolution passes yea 7, nay 0. Number 7, sponsored by Mr. Keys, seconded by Mr. Nelson, resolved by the Council of the City of Erie that the mayor and the appropriate officials are hereby authorized to enter into agreements with individual homeowners awarded funding from the Pennsylvania Housing Affordability and Rehabilitation Enhancement Fund, FAIR, through the PHFA, Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency, where up to $4,000 will be provided to 25 low and moderate income owner occupants for repairs or improvements to their homes. Discussion?
Is this one of those adjustments from Thursday at noon until Monday morning, or in addition? Or is that, then we have another agenda change Monday? Okay.
Could someone please give the citizens the person and/or phone number to call for additional information, please?
The staff person that's responsible for distributing the fair funds is Veronica Field. And hold on a second. Her direct line is 814-870-1443. And her email is V, as in Veronica, Fields, Fields, @erie.pa.us.
Any other discussion? Voting on the resolution, Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. Resolution passes yea 7, nays 0. A resolution sponsored by Mr. Witherspoon, seconded by Mr. Keys, resolved by the Council of the City of Erie, receiving the communication from the City Planning Commission recommending the request for waterfront conditional use submitted by Diamond Design Construction on behalf of Lance Besner and Marissa Hughes for a single-family dwelling located at 249 East 2nd, parcel ID number 1410-09-211, and a request from Donald Morphy for construction of a single-family dwelling at 463 West Front Street, parcel ID 1740-41-122. Both being located in the waterfront residential district, be approved, and authorizing and directing the city clerk to advertise for a public hearing to be held before council on Wednesday, September 7th at approximately 9 a.m. in City Council Chambers, 626 State. Discussion?
Lori, I just wanted to make sure the public and also City Council knew about these two public hearings. So that will, essentially, that will start off our City Council meeting that morning. Is that correct? We'll start with the public hearing?
Oh, we could do it at 9:30 a.m.
Nah, whatever. I mean, what?
That's normally what we do.
What we would normally do?
It's probably just a typo.
So it should be 9:30?
Yes.
Okay. Because we do start, usually we
The meeting is at
try and
9.
get some of our other business done first. Okay.
Okay.
So September 7th at 9:30. these public hearings on 2 waterfront conditional use requests.
Yeah, we'll make sure that's in the ad.
Thanks, Lori.
Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. Resolution passes yea 7, nay 0. I think we can go to committee reports now.
Okay, let's start with Michael, Jasmine, Ed for committee reports, then Mo, Mel, Chuck. Okay, so Michael, committee reports.
I just have a commentary, a couple comments. One, as Mel highlighted, make sure that the people know that this grant is going to be available, $4,000 to fix up your house. Contact Veronica Fields at the Erie Economic Department. I don't know the timetable for rolling them out, but I do want the residents to know about it and to take full advantage of it. 2, one, I'd like to say I thank the Pickleball Association for all the work that they are doing in the park. And I do have concerns, though, about the park having enough real estate to do the plans that they have for the area. I was there on taco night, and the street to the west was very constrained with the parking on when there was, during the pickleball hour. And so I actually just have a challenge to you. There's going to be new pickleball courts, and I know you were raising money, and so it seems like, the city has the capability of underwriting the pickleball courts. But maybe challenge you to use that money to fix up the play area and make a nice play area for the kids, because it's going to look disingenuous on our part where you have brand new pickleball courts and we have an old basketball court and an old playground. And so maybe you want to consider that. That's all.
Okay, that's your report. Jasmine?
As far as committees, we had a meeting for the blighted property. Those meetings go in under 30 minutes. So we still need to appoint someone to the blighted property committee. So if we could get people to apply, submit your resume, we would greatly appreciate it. I would generally like someone who's a city resident. You can be a homeowner or a renter, as long as you have some history in the area that you're trying to advocate for would be lovely. I have a meeting today later on in the afternoon with David Robinson from the EMTA as far as finding updates on what's going on with the Greyhound and possibly Sunday services, just a meeting to update me. I also wanted to state that I am in favor of the Environmental Advisory Council. So I look forward to seeing what we can do as a city to make our lake cleaner and better, and being advocates for the environment, considering we do border the lake and it is a grand body of fresh water. So in the future, I see wars being waged over areas for fresh water. So we need to make sure that we are taking care of our oldest asset right now, which is the lake, in my opinion. So I'm in favor of that. So I also wanted to make a statement that wages matters, schools matter, quality of housing that's available matters. So we want to bring people to the city of Erie. It's hard to do with the things that are currently going on, and I just want people to be aware that it's hard to get 10,000 people to move here in the next few years if we are in the condition that we're in. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed?
Yeah, one negative, I don't know if it's a negative comment or not. I advocated for single-family dwellings in our ARP money, and we got a multi-story And Hans always does a good job. But once again, we're doing the same thing. We're creating a project-like situation rather than have a single-family home dwelling that people could sit back and say, this is mine, and I'm going to make it and keep it beautiful. That being said, I do have two really nice things to talk about. Mr. Wells' Seawolves, we have the best record in the Eastern League right now, and if the Tigers don't take guys up, they got a good chance of winning it all. So that's a wonderful thing. 8 Great Tuesdays with the Port Authority, and also Tall Ships are coming in on the 25th of August, and Ms. Sandberg is down there, and then everybody's down there working really hard to make it another beautiful venue for the city. Those Tall Ships come in at 4 o'clock on the 25th, if I remember right. That's all I have. Thank you and have a good day.
Thanks. Mo?
Madam President, looking at the agenda, and I don't really have a report, but looking at the agenda, the flagship ARP grants, I'm happy to see that many of the names that are getting them are actually former students that went to schools that I worked at, so I'm happy to see that they're becoming business owners. And also commend the city and United Way and all the organizations on National Night Out yesterday. It's a really nice event all around town. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks. Mel?
No report, Madam President.
Thank you. Chuck?
I've got a bit of a list today. Sorry. Yeah. Is it 5 minutes? Do I have 5 minutes here too? I haven't pushed against that yet. I might. So a couple things on the list. We completed the feasibility study that we're looking at for glass and food compost recycling this month. Last council meeting, we were in the middle of it. Some of the college kids called off one day, and I was out there the day before. I'd done the last council meeting by a distance. I was out there the Monday before, actually dropping off buckets at the mayor's house. So I got some hands-on that. We delegated that out to Penn State Barron to save the city expenses. The numbers are looking like the average household is producing about 15 pounds of glass and food compost weekly. So you multiply that out over the participation rate in these various tracks, and we can see how much money we could save from tipping while doing better by the environment. That's really, it's a two-prong goal with this. Baldwin Park, I've been spending a lot of time with that. I've got the plans for it all. I had a request for them as well, so I can pass those on to the person that asked for it. We've got it all drawn out. As you're talking about with the upgrades to the playground, it's not a one-year plan here. So this year they're updating the courts. With the qualified census tract stuff we're looking at where the garbage cans are going to be. I was there yesterday, and I was told that one of the residents keeps moving the garbage can to get it to a spot that they find to be better for picking up litter. Well, there's going to be further investment to get more garbage cans at the various points in the park. There is, as you were talking about with the issues on the west side parking, they're going to be adjusting that, and then where the pedestrian access is for the walking traffic often gets parked against. So it's less, you don't even get to use it because of all these drivers. But they've sort of engineered it out so that those areas are going to be protected better. So some of the concerns around that. And then we were there yesterday with some of the concerned residents and some of the excited residents. Some of the things that were kind of fun was I was talking to some of the older residents that had been there forever, and they were telling me stories about their teenage days of the pits. They offered me the stories of when they were like a little kid and would play in there, then their teenage days of playing in there inappropriately, and then what happened in the 90s to restore it and bring it to usage with the tennis courts, but nobody's really playing tennis there. So this I'm looking at this and seeing it as a lot of a restoration as to what it was intended to be used as when we saw investment there 30 years ago and haven't seen any investment since. But the public process is still a concern. Oh, and the guy that talked about 2.5 blocks away hearing the sound of it, some of the funding is going towards sound barriers, natural resistance with indigenous plants and trees to muffle that noise a little bit. But the public process is still a concern there, of having neighborhoods that are organized, usually having a better voice for their concerns. Whereas neighborhoods that are less organized, that have, they end up having less public input. But that Parks Department is still a concern for how that gets done. Recreation to go with that. Yesterday, I spent the morning at the zoo with Scott Mitchell. They recently, and Jasmine, when you go to EMTA and you're talking about Sunday routes, the zoo has free admission on Sundays.
Between
3 and 5 or 4 and 6, depending on the season. It varies. And he was talking about they've now started to collect the zip code information on that. Some of our new Americans are less likely to share their zip code information, but the zip code we get of participation on that, that's city residents. I mean, it's like we're offering this resource that's free for our community. But they recently lost their AZA accreditation. That might be redundant. Their AZ accreditation, their AZA. And the primary reason for that, I expected that it was because of enclosures or because of some practices. I know Pittsburgh declines to be AZA accredited because they want to play with the elephants in ways that the AZA doesn't approve of. But our case, it was because of funding, just simply because of funding. You know, historically, the city had been giving funds towards it. The Erie County Gaming Revenue Authority sort of replaced that on our behalf to cut some of that expenses off of us, but the gaming revenue has been down a little bit and it's not being funded at the same level as what it has been. So the AZA pulled the accreditation primarily because of this zoo not being able to demonstrate a steady flow of funding. So Scott's hoping to talk to us a little further about that. To talk about what kind of resource that is for the community, to talk about what the other municipalities are already giving the zoo, even though it's not in their community. One of the municipalities, I've never even heard of them, and they're giving 2% of their budget. I probably shouldn't admit that if for the county people that watch. But I'd never even heard of the one municipality. Along with that, I did a facilities tour on Friday with a number of different departments to see the Miller brothers that we voted on last time, or maybe the time before. And as somebody brought up traffic mitigation, we also had some complaints about what that traffic looks like on the Bayfront Parkway with the Jake breaks and like how loud it gets. And they suggested some ordinances that were passed elsewhere. I always appreciate advice that then also comes with ordinances and examples of other places that have passed it. And Ed, your concerns about the promotions with the Tigers, they promoted 2 really big ones, and I don't want to cut that out Liz's thunder because she keeps up with that better than me. But they made a big trade yesterday at the deadline, and we got one of those prospects, and they promoted the number 4 prospect in the whole system as well. So I don't want to undercut Liz on that because she keeps those updates better than me. But that's pretty exciting. So hopefully we might end up with a better team at the end of the year than the top team right now. That's it for me. Thanks.
Thanks, Chuck. You're making me laugh because I told somebody last night I had fallen asleep. This doesn't have anything to do with, actually it does sort of have to do with the Tigers. I fell asleep, but then I woke up and found out that Vin Scully had died. So I spent like half an hour listening to him call the perfect game for Sandy Koufax and the 1988 World Series. And anyhow, I stayed up later than I should have. But I didn't realize he had started with Ernie Harwell. I mean, he didn't start there, but he had broadcast with Ernie Harwell, who became the... Anyhow, I attended the Historic Review Commission meeting via Zoom on Monday, and then on Tuesday, the commission members met with the consultant that has been hired, Lakota Group, and I want to reassure people, somebody had asked, I think it was Rob Britton had asked about training. There was a lot of great discussion about how do you do historic preservation, how do you make sure that you acknowledge that it's not all just about, the Millionaires Row, and how do you do that in a way that you aren't pushing people out. Mark Tannenbaum, who's a member of the commission, and Chris Kinder, who is our historic preservationist, just came from a conference in Cincinnati, came back with a lot of ideas about providing tools and resources to help people instead of a heavy hand. So I think the commission is moving in the right direction. And the consultant will be here, I believe, in October, so I'll make sure that City Council is aware of that. They're very sensitive to, there was a lot of discussion about what do we want the consultant to do, how do we tell the stories of the the people who helped to build Erie, so I think that that's really good. I had invited the Pickleball Association, or they had requested to speak here, and I think it was a really good way for us to understand how that project came about, and that kind of energy, what Chuck saw at Baldwin Park, I know Michael has been there, was somewhat duplicated yesterday during National Night Out. I met with Paris Baker at McKinley Park, and he would like to be able to activate that park in a way so that it has more amenities for families. There is going to be a picnic there on Sunday, August 27th, so if anybody's interested in going. And it's really neat when you go to a park with somebody who lives in the neighborhood and they can say, this is what it was, this is what it could be. And one of the cool things about being there with Paris is that there's a cement pad there, and he said that used to be the pool. And when he said that, I realized, aha, yes, there used to be a pool at Victory Park at 13th and Lincoln, and Paris said, I can't believe we actually went into that thing. We were taking our life into our hands. You know, you're in this cement pond like the Beverly Hillbillies. And then when I went to Columbus Park yesterday, same thing. So those really old parks had those pools that were just cement pads. So anyhow, there's a lot of potential here for what we're going to be doing with we call it participatory budgeting, but we need all kinds of ideas from people about how we bring them into the conversation. Same thing that's going to be going on with the Historic Review Commission. So there's a lot of opportunities. We just want to make sure everybody's at the table, and we're going to listen. So that's my report. Ed? No report. Okay, Renee. Hey, Teresa, did I miss you? I'm sorry. You're next.
Just to let everybody know, next week our consultant will be in to do an overview for our aggregate pension funds and water reserve. So that's it.
Council's invited to meet with Seth. We have a couple of different options that we can pick, correct?
Yeah, whatever Lori, I think, is reached
I haven't
out
opted in yet, but I will.
Good morning again, everybody. A few quick things. I want to echo the statement about the energy last night at National Night Out. It was awesome to get out and see everybody, and I really want to thank all the volunteers and all the neighborhood organizations and the bands and food vendors and everybody who came out to make it an enjoyable experience for everyone. Also, just to reiterate, this Sunday at Baldwin Park will be the next 814 concert series, and Mambo will be playing, as was mentioned earlier. 4 o'clock will be the drum circle with One World Tribe, and then 6 o'clock with Mambo. Then on Monday night at 7 o'clock at Nightingale Nursing Home, which was formerly St. Mary's East, the Presque Isle Saxophone Quartet will be playing. And then on August 14th at Baker Field at East 32nd and Holland, we'll have Eric Brewer and Friends. That's a Sunday. So again, drum circle at 4 o'clock, and then 6 o'clock with Eric Brewer. And then on Monday the 15th, that'll wrap up the 814 Summer Concert Series at Curry Shell Apartments. At 7 o'clock, we'll have the Gem City Jazz Ensemble. And then, of course, Celebrate Erie will be August 19th through the 21st, and we're working on last-minute plans. We have a great team of volunteers. Can't thank them enough. We couldn't pull it off without them. I also want to thank Love Your Block, Serve Erie, ECAT, Erie Arts and Culture, and all the volunteers who helped last weekend with the project on East Avenue. It was a great community improvement project. A lot of people out doing beautification efforts, helping neighbors with projects that they couldn't do themselves, and it was a really wonderful experience. The Love Your Block team is currently evaluating the grant applications that were received and requesting final information where we had some gaps. So we'll be looking to announce those grants in the coming weeks and launching those projects. Want to just recognize the 23 ARP flagship grants that were approved today. Want to thank council for that. These are well-deserving small businesses in the city of Erie. This was the third batch we provided, and this equated to $57,500 of our ARP funding. We are working really hard on getting the participatory budgeting process finalized for our resident input into the improvements into parks and public spaces. This is really exciting because when we came in 2018, there was no funding available to do this level of planning and getting input from the residents. So we know it's going to be a bit of a daunting process, but we're excited about getting the resident input, and we want to make sure we're getting it right. So I was just talking to Lisa and Jackie, who are our ARP managers, and we're going to meet. We want to make sure that everything that we're doing is actually going to be eligible for funding once we get the once we get the input, that it's actually going to be an eligible ARP expense. And so we're going to go through it with them and our auditors, and then we're going to have our neighborhood groups test it to make sure that the way we've designed the survey is understandable and easy enough to use. And we'll be launching that later this month. I also wanted to mention that in addition to the $100,000 grant that we got that was unanticipated from the fair funding, we also, of course, have allocated $15 million to the Redevelopment Authority of the City of Erie. And currently, there's $3.18 million that the applications have opened for lead hazard control and for a Healthy Homes program that residents can apply to. There's also, I just wanted to make sure that I reminded everybody of this, there's $2.27 million for new housing production, which is for new workforce housing in the city's qualified census tracts. They're hoping to be able to build 100 dwelling units over the next 3 years. So there's a lot of funding here. There's funding for residents to make improvements to their homes. There's funding for landlords to improve their properties through a loan program. All of these are going to be opening up in the coming weeks, but the one that's open right now is lead hazard control, but residents can get to that through the city's website, and on the front page it says American Rescue Plan, and they can click that, and all the programs are available there. And then finally, I just wanted to say, for those of you who are interested in the historic preservation plan, we'll have additional updates. That'll be the focus of tomorrow's press conference.
Thanks, Renee. Yep. Any other comments?
Yes, Madam President, I would like to ask City Clerk if she can get in touch with Mr. Robert Britton and get the information on his father. I've known his father for many years, and that'll be well deserved to the family. Thank you.
Thank you. I did want to I thought of one other thing about Vin Scully. When I was he talked about how he fell in love with baseball, but one of the things he mentioned was he participated in the Police Athletic League in, I think it was 1936. So Police Athletic League has a very long history, and it just popped out at me because of our Police Athletic League. So anything else? Okay. Move to adjourn.
City Council adjourns at 11:08 a.m. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Ms.